Looking for some yummy dessert ideas for the holiday season? Well, look no further because in this video, I'm going to show you 4 easy and oh so delicious hot chocolate inspired treats. Hello, adventurers! My name is Carly, and welcome back to my channel, Adventures in Yum, bringing you delightfully delicious food videos that I hope will inspire you to go on your own food adventures. If you're new to my channel, I share recipes for mostly sweet treats, some savory eats, food reviews, and yes, cocktails too. If that sounds awesome to you, please consider subscribing. Hot chocolate is that comforting classic hot beverage that we all know and love. Last year, I did Hot Chocolate Week on my food blog where I shared 5 hot chocolate-inspired dessert items and components. I figured what better time than now to share these fabulous dessert ideas. What's your favorite kind of hot chocolate treat? Let me know in the comments below. In addition to these tasty delights, make sure to check out my Hot Chocolate Bombs video for a super fun and fancy way to enjoy hot chocolate. And now, let's dive into these scrumptious desserts. First up, simple hot chocolate truffles. We're going to start with a chocolate ganache base. For truffles, this means a 2-to-1 ratio of chocolate to heavy whipping cream. For example, combine 1 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips and half a cup of heavy whipping cream in a heat-safe bowl. Heat in the microwave for 20 to 30 seconds at a time, making sure to stir in between each heating. Once the chocolate is completely melted and the mixture is nice and smooth, cover this with plastic wrap and cool in the fridge until it is completely set, at least 2 hours. Next, using a small cookie scoop, scoop the ganache into small balls and place them on parchment paper. Then, roll the truffles into uniform balls. I personally like to use gloves during this process, but you don't have to as long as your hands are completely clean. If the ganache becomes too soft while rolling the truffle balls, you may need to place them in the refrigerator for 20 to 30 minutes before going to the next step. And finally, add a truffle to a bowl and roll it around until they are fully coated in your preferred coating. For my truffles, I had 3 separate bowls, one with crushed candy canes, the second with unsweetened dark cocoa powder, and the final with graham cracker crumbs. Set these aside and continue to coat the rest of the truffles. For the s'mores ones, place 3 marshmallow bits on top of each truffle and gently press them down so that they'll stick to the top of the truffle. Once they're all complete, your hot chocolate truffles are ready to enjoy. Second, we have the greatest hot chocolate cupcakes. On a side but related note, I gave these to a few family friends last year, and the husband of one of them said it was quite possibly the best cupcake he had ever had, so they're pretty good. These cupcakes are incredibly easy. All you need is a batch of my moist chocolate cake, which is featured in my chocolate cake video, some jet puffed marshmallow cream, and a batch of stabilized whipped cream, which is simply just whipped cream that contains gelatin in order to keep its shape when piped. Once the cupcakes are baked and cooled, I cut the centers out with one of my fondant circle cutters that's approximately 1¼ inches in diameter. Remove the top half of the center and slightly press down the remaining sponge in the center of the cupcake. Next, fill the center of the cupcake with marshmallow cream until it's completely full. Using a piping bag fitted with a Wilton 1M piping tip and filled with fresh stabilized whipped cream, pipe either a rosette or a multi-layered dollop of whipped cream. This completely depends on your preference. I just personally like to do rosettes to top my cupcakes for a better balanced treat. Finally, to top it all off, you can definitely add some mini marshmallows or sprinkles, but I decided to sift some unsweetened dark cocoa powder over the top of the whipped cream for a simple finish to this treat. These delicious cupcakes are complete and ready to enjoy. Third, my yummy hot chocolate cake roll. This cake roll utilizes chocolate cake, chocolate buttercream, chocolate ganache, marshmallow cream, stabilized whipped cream, cinnamon, and sprinkles. On a side note, unlike the hot chocolate truffles, the chocolate ganache we're using this time is a 1-to-1 ratio of chocolate to cream. Place the chocolate cake sponge approximately 3 cups in a large mixing bowl and crumble it into small pieces. Add a combination of hot chocolate buttercream and chocolate ganache, approximately 1/4 to 1/2 cup, and then thoroughly mix the cake, buttercream, and chocolate ganache together. You want the cake to hold together, so take a small ball of the cake mixture and press it into a disc shape in your hand. If the cake cracks or crumbles at all while doing this, add more buttercream and or ganache a little bit at a time. Once the cake mixture is the desired consistency, place it onto a piece of parchment paper, and then place another piece of parchment paper on top and use a rolling pin to roll the dough into a large, flat rectangle that's about 1/4 of an inch thick. Remove the parchment paper and use a paring knife to cut a rectangle in the cake. Remove the excess and set it aside to use for another cake roll or some cake pops. Then, use piping bags to pipe alternating lines of chocolate ganache and marshmallow cream on top of the cake dough. Next, gently fold one side of the cake to start the rolling portion of the cake roll process. Use the parchment paper to continue to roll the cake until it is all tightly rolled together. Place this onto a sheet pan and pop into the freezer for at least 15 minutes to let the cake dough and fillings slightly harden. Now that you're ready to decorate, remove the cake roll from the freezer and cut a thin strip off of each end. Using a piping bag fitted with a Wilton 1M tip and filled with stabilized whipped cream, pipe a nice pattern with the whipped cream on top of the cake roll. Next, sift some cinnamon over the top of the cake roll. This is completely optional. I simply decided to add it because I wanted another flavor. Lastly, sprinkle some Christmas sprinkles on top of the whipped cream. Place this in the freezer for at least 30 minutes to an hour to allow the cake roll to completely harden, as it is much easier to cut neat slices. When you're ready to cut and serve the cake roll, remove the cake roll from the freezer and use a sharp knife to cut even slices. Of course, enjoy. If you're loving these hot chocolate dessert items, make sure to hit that like button and click subscribe. And the fourth and final hot chocolate dessert is my decadently delicious hot chocolate cake. For this cake, I am once again using my moist chocolate cake recipe, chocolate ganache with the same consistency mentioned in the cake roll portion of this video, jet puffed marshmallow cream, and my chocolate buttercream. To assemble this cake, add about a tablespoon of buttercream to the center of the cake board and then place the first layer of cake sponge on the cake board. The buttercream will act as a glue to ensure that the cake does not slide off the cake board. Add some chocolate buttercream to a piping bag fitted with a Wilton 1A piping tip, and then pipe a ring of buttercream around the perimeter of the cake sponge. Add a layer of chocolate ganache and use an offset spatula to spread it into an even layer on the sponge. Lastly, spread a swirl of the marshmallow cream onto the chocolate ganache. Add the next layer of cake sponge and then repeat the process until the cake is fully stacked. Crumb coat or dirty ice the cake with a thin layer of buttercream and place in the refrigerator for 20 to 30 minutes. Doing this crumb coat layer ensures that crumbs will not get into your final layer of buttercream. Once the buttercream firms up, add a thick layer of buttercream and use a bench scraper or another sharp-sided kitchen tool to smooth the sides and top of the cake. Place in the refrigerator for at least a couple of hours in order to make sure that the buttercream is very cold when you do the chocolate drip. Using the same 2-to-1 ratio of chocolate to heavy whipping cream when making truffles, make the chocolate ganache for the drip, as seen here in my Celebration Cake Part 3 video. Place it into the refrigerator for approximately 20 to 30 minutes until the ganache is slightly thickened, but will still run down the side of the cake. Add the chocolate ganache to a plastic squeeze bottle, which is my preferred method, a piping bag, or simply use a spoon. Slowly add the chocolate ganache right along the edge of the top of the cake and allow it to drip down the side. After making drips all around the cake, add a layer of chocolate ganache to completely cover the top. Using food tweezers or just your fingers, add marshmallow bits to the chocolate drips and on top of the cake. Stick 2 mini candy canes into the center of the cake to make a heart shape. If they have trouble staying together, add a small dot of thick chocolate ganache and hold the candy canes together for a few seconds. Finally, add some Christmas sprinkles to the top of the cake to really make it pop, and your hot chocolate cake is ready to enjoy. These hot chocolate items are easy to make and so delicious. I mean, come on. How can you go wrong with rich chocolate and marshmallow? And of course, you can find all of these awesome hot chocolate dessert ideas on my website, adventuresandyum.net. The links are in the description below. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll see you next time for another holly jolly fun food adventure.